ACX University, I'm Hannah.
I'm Scott.
And we are your audiobook marketing ACX-Perts. Today, hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of ACX University. I'm Hannah.
I'm Scott.
And we are your audiobook marketing ACX-Perts. Today is the first episode in a three-part series about all the ways that you can promote your audiobook before production begins, during production, and after production.
We call it the roadmap, the Audiobook Marketing Roadmap. And in today's episode, we're going to focus on that first part, pre-production. You needn't wait until your audiobook is available for sale to start thinking about marketing. And in fact, if you wait that long, you are behind the 8 ball already. So we're going to share some ways with you that you can get involved in the marketing process, the way you can lay some groundwork for yourself to set yourself up for success, and maybe some surprising places where you can be thinking about marketing and content right from the beginning.
There are so many opportunities that you might not be thinking about. And the first one is really in the decision to produce an audiobook. So I would say the first thing you should do is tell your fans you've decided to make an audiobook. We talk a lot in this series about content and feeding the content beast and always having something on the calendar to say. So today we've come up with 3 quick things that you can do to get your fans engaged in the process of creating an audiobook and making sure that you are laying the groundwork for promoting the audiobook from the get-go. So what's the first thing we should do?
Yeah, we always talk to you about being really authentic with your fans and creating an authentic human connection with them rather than just being a sales, which feels really fake and won't really work in the end. So again, the first way you can do that is just to talk to your fans about how excited you are, genuinely, I hope, about having decided to publish an audiobook. If you're an audiobook listener, you can share that with them. You can let them know that that played into your decision. You can start the audiobook conversation, start telling them about what you listen to, start asking what they listen to, ask them if they're audiobook fans themselves specifically.
Yeah, that's some sneaky market research because I think not only are you creating awareness for the fact that you're creating an audiobook, but you're also figuring out who might be your mega fans right from the get-go. You might be able to start building a street team of people who are willing to review your audiobook when it finally comes to market.
Yeah, and on that marketing research sort of idea, also discovering what the size of your initial potential market is, right? Do you have a ton of audiobook listeners and maybe you don't really need to do as much groundwork conditioning them to the idea of an audio format? Or does it turn out that not a lot of your fans have discovered audio yet and you need to shift your overall marketing plan in a way that speaks more to that type of potential listener, I guess, at this point, who needs maybe a little more hand-holding to get them to be an audio buyer? But wherever you're doing this, or whatever way you're doing it in, social media, your normal channels, social media, blog, newsletter, are a great way to do this. You can poll your fans on social media. You can ask them to leave comments on your blog. Wherever you're reaching out, it's a great way to just start getting some of that information in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hannah, what is something else that you might want to ask your fans about regarding audiobooks and what they like?
I would ask them what their latest listen is. Go ahead and find out what they're listening to right now, and then head on over to Audible with that list of titles and see if there are any patterns that you can uncover. It's a great way to figure out what your fans' expectations for what your finished audiobook should sound like. So if they're listening to lots of John Grisham, go listen to what John Grisham audiobooks sound like. You may think you know what they sound like, but go to Audible, listen, see who's narrating those titles. Is there a favorite narrator that they are responding to, perhaps? What's the tone of the books they're listening to? So this is a little bit of promotion mixed with market research that's going to help you at the casting stage.
And speaking of that favorite narrator, if you're seeing a narrator come up over and over again, is that narrator on ACX? Could you get them to ACX? Could you get them to narrate your book? If you've already got the narrator producer that your fans are already in love with, that's a huge selling point for your book.
So many narrators are on ACX, so if you find one that you particularly like, head over to the sample search, type in their name, and see if they're available, because that is a great way to meet your fans' expectations right from the get-go.
Along the same lines of who they like watching, listening to, maybe ask your fans who they think would play your characters in a movie, right? In the movie version of your book. The leading characters, some of the supporting characters. again, this really sparks conversation. This gets fans talking about what kind of entertainment they're into. Fans love to share their opinion, and it can also help you in what we'll get into sort of in the next section of this episode, in your casting decisions. If your fans are all mentioning that your leading man is sort of reminds them of this actor, maybe you can find an audiobook actor that either sounds like that or just has a general air or tone like that. Again, not only does it help you make casting decisions and artistic decisions if you're not super well versed in audiobook publishing and production, but it helps you meet your fans' needs and expectations and makes them that more likely to eventually purchase your product when it comes out.
Yeah, let's talk into the casting process because that's a huge marketing opportunity in itself. First, like you mentioned, asking your fans who they think the movie version of your audiobook would be is a great note to add to your title profile. When you're setting up your book on ACX, if you're casting your book, adding that level of detail, the actors who are seeing your audition script and seeing your notes about what the movie version sounds like, they'll head over to YouTube. They'll watch a quick clip and figure out, okay, this is the tone that I'm delivering. I think you'll find that you get a higher quality audition when you give that level of detail. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think you're touching on something really interesting here, which is when you're creating that title profile, when you're putting it up on ACX for auditions, you're doing a little bit of audiobook marketing right then and there, although not to get sales, although not to listeners, you're marketing your audiobook a little bit to potential producers who might want to produce it. So the more information you can provide for them, sort of the easier you can make their job without sort of like dictating to them, right? Because that's a little too much. But the more you can help them produce a good product, the more you can show that you understand the art of audiobook acting and of creation in that way. You're going to be a more compelling partner for them to work with, and you're going to end up with a better audiobook. So it might not sound like audiobook marketing, but I think in a different way, it kind of is. So once you've laid the groundwork by telling your producer sort of what actor you are hoping they're inspired by, once auditions start to come in and you're getting hopefully a lot of really good sounding, compelling auditions for your audiobook, this is a potential place where you can, maybe even the first place, right, where you can start sharing some of that magic audio with your fans. I would caution you to either mention in the title profile that you might be sharing auditions with fans, or even better, get the specific producer's permission to share that audition with your fans, because just realize that like this is sort of not for public consumption, at least that's the way they're thinking about it. So just don't share an audition without your producer's permission. But once you do get that permission, maybe share your top 2 or 3 at most with your fans. You can ask them to vote on which producer narrator they think is going to be best for your book. Tell them to keep it positive. You know, it's all about this producer would be best, not anything they don't like about any other producers. But just it really is a great way to start revealing what this book is going to sound like in audio, and again, little market research help get some understanding as to what they want to hear from that final production.
I would just say it's great to have your fans weighing in on this, but I would say keep it as weighing in. They aren't making the final cut. If they like someone and your heart is telling you to go with another narrator, I would say honor the material and really go with what your instinct is as far as casting. Hopefully you and your fans are aligned on that, but if you're finding yourself in a situation where there's maybe disparate opinions, trust your gut.
Yeah. And once you have selected that producer, once you've made that choice, another great opportunity to sort of shout it from the mountaintops, tell your fans who you have cast in your book. This might be a good opportunity to ask your producer if they're willing to partner with you on some marketing efforts, if they're willing to do a little bit of interview about why they auditioned for the book or why they're excited to produce it. This is actually a point that I do want to stop and talk about just briefly. Your audiobook producer provides a great opportunity to be a marketing partner throughout your production process. But it is something that you should make sure they're aware of, that they're bought into, that they're willing to do. I don't think you need to have that entire conversation with them at this point, but just make sure you put in your title profile, A, what your marketing plans are for this book, because if it's a royalty share production or a royalty share plus production, that producer is going to be earning based on how the audiobook sells, and they're going to want to know how it's going to sell, what your plans are to help make sure that's going to happen. And again, it's also just a good time to let them know what your expectations are, to communicate to them how much, a little bit, you might be expecting out of a production partner. I think we'll get to in the next episode how to get a little deeper into that conversation and really flesh out what everybody's comfortable doing, but never hurts to plant the seed at the outset.
Well, and I think you talked about something that's really interesting that leads us into the next section is setting up your marketing plan, going ahead and starting to lay the groundwork, because you've got a lot of road ahead of you. This is a marathon, not a sprint. So the more work that you can do to set yourself up for success now, you're going to be so grateful and so thankful later when you discover you've already thought through all of this. So let's talk about some of the homeworky things that you can do. Scott, what's the first way an author can start promoting their audiobook?
Yeah. Join audiobook fan groups, whether they're on Facebook, Reddit, Goodreads groups, basically anywhere where readers/listeners or people might congregate, you can find people talking about audiobooks. I know that Audible has a great romance audiobook fan group. There's definitely an Audible subreddit on Reddit.
Goodreads has a ton of audio fans and audio forums. Yeah.
And so what you're doing here is you're joining the group, you're getting the lay of the land, you're learning how the conversation goes, and you're establishing yourself as an authentic presence. The last thing you want to do is wait till release day, join this group, you're a completely unknown entity to what is already a community that has its own shape and contour, and then you just come barging through the door and you say, I got a new audiobook, buy it. They're gonna go, I don't care, see you later. So to avoid that happening, just get yourself involved in the conversation authentically from the beginning and help yourself by laying the groundwork within those Facebook groups. Hannah, some other ways to start getting things going at the beginning?
Absolutely. So now if you have a backlist of audiobooks, now's a great opportunity to promote them. If they're sequential, if they're related to each other, doesn't matter if it's series or if it's just titles that are kind of in the same category, go ahead and market your audiobook backlist. Say, hey, you need to get caught up on book A before book B comes out.
You need to.
You absolutely need to. Now's a great time to market your backlist. So don't forget to use those bounty links that you have in your sales dashboard to promote any backlist audio titles that you might have.
Speaking of promoting audio, speaking of backlist titles and bounty links, now is a great time to set up your SoundCloud account if this is your first audiobook production, or if you've produced audiobooks or published audiobooks previously and haven't yet set up your SoundCloud account. This is a great time to get that going. For those that may not know, SoundCloud is an audio-focused social media network. You can either use it as its own network and its own stream where listeners may live, or you can just use it for its little widget where you can upload your audio, it's got a little player, and it plugs nicely into various social media channels so that you can feature your audio as it does start to get produced, as it does come out along your other channels. And one great place where you can use that SoundCloud clip is
your website.
Yeah.
Now is the time to start building those pages on your website, whatever website tool you're using to build your web pages. You don't necessarily have to publish them, but go ahead and start adding coming soon widgets to the page that you have for each of your books on your website. And then I really like the idea of creating an audiobook section on your website. You might not have any audio to play with, but you can use that final audition maybe as a clip in SoundCloud that you've got on your coming soon page. Now's the time to start just building out those web assets so that on launch day you're not, oh my gosh, I've got to update my website. Like this is something that you can do right now that's going to set yourself up for success later.
Yeah, and if you don't have any audio that you can feature on that audiobook specific page on your website, take the opportunity, maybe have a text interview with your narrator, maybe have like some pictures of their studio once you've cast them. Just because the audio hasn't been produced yet, there are other ways that you can be sort of locking into promotional methods, and I think in future episodes we're also going to be talking about some of that sort of behind the scenes idea. There's a little sneak preview of what we'll get into next time. Just behind the scenes video, behind the scenes audio. Think about ways that you might be able to leverage it early in the nascent stages of your production before you do have audio.
So before we leave you, what are the takeaways that we should be remembering from how to promote your audiobook even before it goes into production?
The first one I would say is announce that you've decided to publish an audiobook. Announce that decision. Involve your fans in the process nice and early. Start your marketing when you actually start your publishing production process. Don't wait until the end.
Absolutely. The next tip is remember that the casting process is full of marketing opportunities, from asking your fans to help you find narrators that they really love, to voting on final auditions, to just making a great casting announcement when your audiobook becomes available for sale. Casting is another marketing opportunity that you can't forget.
And the pivot point between casting and our last sort of high point from the episode, which is laying the groundwork, is Casting is also a great part to lay the groundwork for your production partner expectations with your narrator producer and let them know what your marketing plan is and what you expect out of them. Speaking of laying the groundwork, that's our last tip that we covered in the episode, which is set yourself up for success. Figure out what you can plan now that you will put into practice later, whether it's setting up a SoundCloud account if you haven't already, whether it's creating that audiobook section on your website, whether it's mapping out what your release day plus audiobook plan will look like. Set yourself up for success. Think about it now so that you're not scrambling later.
So we hope we've uncovered some unique opportunities to promote your audiobook before it even goes into production. Join us next time when we'll be talking about the opportunities to promote your audiobook while it's being recorded and how to set yourself up for success on that launch day. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, and then the time after that too. Thanks for watching.